So there's going to be a really lengthy endgame for Outriders when it launches on April 1st. Of course, this comes on top of the 40 hours or so main campaign that we also get alongside that, and I do want to cover everything that the endgame in Outriders has to offer us, because there's quite a bit in there, a ton of challenges, new cool quests, as well as really awesome zones that you only get to unlock after finishing the main campaign, reaching level 30, and even more so if you want to aim for the highest possible challenges and rewards. You will want to min-max your characters quite a bit. Now, the demo gave us a pretty rough idea of how each of the levels are going to look like in the main game. We get a main hub, and of course the main story is going to push us through new zones, but alongside that there's going to be additional paths that are branching out that will provide a ton of side content to complete, both early on as well as later on in the game, which mainly comes in the form of these side missions, but there's many more on top, like monster hunts and bounty hunting too, among many other things. But we're gonna start off with the side quest. Now, you might think that just because you unlock these early they might be useless in the end game, and that is actually far from the truth. And the reason for that is because rewards do scale up with your level, which means that even early on side quests can remain meaningful all the way into the late game, and maybe even after you have finished the main campaign. So you can totally stumble upon a really fast and easy to complete side quest, but because it scales up to your level, you can repeat it and complete it again and get some really sweet reward out of it. And I can already think of Terra Infirma, and since this is already an amazing way to farm legendaries even at a low level in the demo, I can only wonder how this is going to look like when you reach level 30, or who knows, maybe there's going to be even better side quests out there that are going to give you even more possibilities for additional loot. Another type of side content is going to be the monster hunts, which I'm even more excited for because they definitely look very fun and interesting. In these, you have to basically track down typically more evolved and more dangerous creatures, but at the same time also get additional rewards on top. Now, these creatures, unlike everything else that you're fighting, are going to be a lot more resilient, and they tend to cast a lot more special and more powerful types of abilities. Now, think of these as kind of like mini bosses, and in many, well, other situations, even fully fledged bosses, as they can definitely become a lot more challenging. So while early on you might only get to fight one of these creatures, in some of the later ones that you get to unlock, yeah, you're going to fight entire swarms and then their queen at the same time, which you might or might not need a full group of friends to complete that, or maybe at least a really awesome build for that. But on top of that, this will also give you an extra type of reward, which comes in the form of these trophies. Now, we don't have too much information on that outside of the fact that you can put these on display in the hub that you unlock them into. So this has been confirmed to at least give you some form of acknowledgement from the NPCs in those hubs. So who knows, maybe this might also unlock some other game functions later down the line, or maybe just another cool way to display your achievements, assuming that you've completed them. The last type of side content that we have a bit of information on is going to be the bounty hunting. Now, unfortunately, there's no gameplay footage of this, but we do have some information on how these will function. And just like in the case of some of the other side quests, you get to find out about these from the various hubs by interacting with the NPCs over there, which might have some information about them. It's not yet clear if these are going to be dynamic, kind of like how it is in Skyrim, where you find about these through various dialogue sequence, or will they have specific NPCs and dialogues, kind of like how it is with the other ones that we also had in the demo. What we do know for certain is that you will get to interact with these wanted posters randomly out in the wild, which is going to put you on the track towards these bounty hunts in the first place. And yeah, in the end game, the world tier modifiers will definitely help us with even better farming methods, because by the time you reach level 15 in world tiers, you're gonna have a much better drop chance for legendaries and higher grade loot. I also want to make a clarification on how these function, because I've seen quite a lot of people getting this wrong. So right now, if you look at the world tiers in the demo, the world tier 5 is going to list the legendary drop rate modifier bonus plus 25%, and a lot of people thought that this means that legendaries have a 25% chance to drop, which makes absolutely no sense if you just take a look at, for example, world tier 15, which lists about 300%. So this is just a modifier to the base chance chance of legendaries to drop. Let me give you an example. Let's say that right now at the level 7 that we have in the demo, the chances by default for a legendary to drop would be roughly 1%, as in you get a 1% chance by default to see a legendary drop from any source. With the world tier 5 modifier by 25%, that means that we would be able to add another 0.25 on top of that, which would equate to a 1.25% chance for legendaries to drop from all sources at world tier 5 in the demo right now at level 7. Of course, as we level up, the base chance for legendaries and for rarer loot to drop will also increase, so these values might look vastly different at level 30, which is why we're gonna have to wait for the full game for these calculations to go into effect, but I just wanted to give you an example and to clear up a pretty big misconception. Now this brings us to the highest of the high endgame content that is available in Outriders, and this is only going to be possible after you have finished the main campaign. And this brings us to the expeditions. This, as I've mentioned in previous videos, are big handcrafted levels with their own unique mechanics, challenges and storylines, and the best part about them, as I've said previously, is that these are going to be completely unique, as in it's not going to give you any content recycled from the main campaign. It's going to be all new for you to enjoy after that point, which also brings us to another big advantage that expeditions have on top of every other type of content up until that point, and that is the fact that unlike everything else, it's going to provide guaranteed rewards of certain qualities depending on the difficulty that you play them on and depending on how fast you complete them. Like for example, some of the end tiers over there, starting with tier 12, is going to guarantee at least 1 to 3 legendaries and at least a few more epics on top if you complete them fast enough. So let me explain everything when it comes to expeditions and the challenge tiers associated with them. So starting with the challenge tiers, these function very similar to how the world tiers function, as in they let you adjust difficulty but at the same time also provide an increased level of rewards. Now unlike the world tiers, these get to be unlocked a little bit more differently. So you will unlock these by successfully completing an expedition, which will also increase your challenge tier, as you can see right here at the bottom. When you unlock a new challenge tier, this will also grant you access to the next expedition in the sequence up to the maximum of 15, which means that if you have unlocked all 15 of these expeditions in total, this will also grant you access up to 15 challenge tiers that you can easily switch between depending on how easy it is for you to complete them, with the highest of them all providing some of the best rewards that I will explain a bit later on in the video. So just to give you an example, if you start an expedition at tier 5, your best rewards will be a guaranteed epic and guaranteed 3 rares. Meanwhile, at something like level 12 will give you a guaranteed legendary and a guaranteed epic if you complete them with the best completion time, and of course it's gonna be much better at tier 15, but we haven't seen that yet. This also brings us to the loot, and there's a few aspects about the loot that I do want to talk about here in the expeditions. Now first of all, there's a disclaimer, a big one right here, and that is the fact that unlike other types of content, loot in expeditions no longer drops from enemies, but rather it is given to you at the end of the expedition when you complete it from one of these chests that you get to interact with. Now don't worry if you don't manage to complete these or if you die along the way. This doesn't mean that you go out empty-handed. You will still get the rewards up until that point, but you don't get the guarantee rewards for the timer since you never got to complete it in the first place. Another big mechanic that you need to keep an eye out for in expeditions are going to be the time it takes for you to complete them, because the faster you complete an expedition, the better the rewards are going to be. So this is mostly split between 3 types of chests that you can get, which provide those guarantee rewards. So these could be either gold, silver or bronze, with the gold of course being the best ones in terms of rewards, but also requiring the least amount of time for you to complete said expedition. Obviously, the more you increase the challenge tier, the better are the rewards going to be. So as I've said, even though you might start with only a few rares in the early stages, by the time you reach the maximum levels like 12 and above, you're going to start to see guaranteed legendaries and epics in that gold chest right there. So it is definitely going to be worth it for you to like push forward and get the best build possible for your character so that you can get the best possible rewards later on. And this is how it's going to look like in the end game. This is like what you're going to strive for. Full-on legendary character, and the main source for that is going to be some of these expeditions on the highest challenge tier possible. Now there's another thing that you need to keep in mind regarding these timers, and that is the fact that the more you increase your challenge tiers, the less time you're going to have in order to complete it with a gold chest. So for example, the Archways of Enoch, which is one very early on expedition you can complete. If you complete this on tier 1, you have plenty of time with 15 minutes over there to get a gold chest, but at the same time, if you complete it at a much higher tier, you might only get a timer of 10 minutes or below that to get the same gold chest, but with much better rewards. So you can see all of this and adjust all of this right before you start an expedition, and this will all scale up depending on how you set up that challenge tier. So if you can't handle a higher challenge tier, you can always come back to a lower one and try to get the rewards from that until you can push the higher ones, and so on and so forth. The only other thing that I will mention about the loots in these expeditions is the fact that if you play on higher challenge tiers, even though your maximum character level might be only 30 in the full game, the expedition rewards and enemies can go all the way up to 50. Of course, there's other ways to get level 50 gear in the game. Upgrading it via the crafting system is also an option, but I wanted to cover that in a completely separate video since I think it's worth it to talk about crafting when we actually get the full game. This is it for now. Thanks so much for watching, and of course, cast your opinion down below. Are you excited for Outriders? As always, don't forget to leave a thumbs up on the video, subscribe and activate that notification bell, and I'll see you guys in the next one.